Well, howdy friends. Brian Fleshing of Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and as promised, we're here circling back today on a video that we released recently called Spring Steelhead and Mending Lessons. Of course, that day we were on a float trip here in Ohio for steelhead with our head guide over at Ohio Fly Fishing Guides, Josh McQueen. Unfortunately, Josh couldn't be here today because, as always, during March and April, peak spring steelhead season here in Ohio, he's on the water with clients. So you're stuck with me today. So before we jump in, as always, friends, we appreciate you being here. You know that. But be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Hit the like button and then hop on over to madriveroutfitters.com after we're done, where you can find all of this stuff and share some love so we can continue to make these videos, which we greatly enjoy. So when we were out on the water, if you watched that video, if you didn't, go do it right after we're done. I promised you that when I got inside and got warmed up, I'd talk about some of the gear that we were using, or at least the gear that I use when I go steelhead fishing here in Ohio. So here we are, where I don't feel like a corn dog in the frozen section. And I'm nice and warmed up too, by the way. We'll start with the rods. The rod's kind of the cool part of the equation. And I think I even mentioned in the video that the style of fishing that we often do here in Ohio could be referred to as high stick nymphing, dead drift nymphing, all kinds of terms for it. But the style that I most often employ when fishing steelhead here in Ohio is dead drift high stick nymphing. And therefore, a 10-foot rod is critical to me. And also, the line weight we most often use is a 7 weight. You'll see some people use 6s, some people use 8s. I pretty much always use a 10-foot 7 weight for steelhead here in Ohio. And I also mentioned in that video that, to be honest with you, the style of fishing, the style of casting that we do is very, very non-technical. I don't spend big money on a high stick nymphing rod. I just don't. And I apologize to the rod manufacturers. I apologize to our reps. But I buy, and not to mention I work in a fly shop. So let's also be fair there that I can't afford some of the more expensive stuff. So I buy the cheap stuff. And it works just great. In fact, the rod that I've been using for the past couple years is made by Redington, and it's called the Redington Path. And it's a really perfect action for this style of fishing. I think the rod sells for $129.95. It comes with a rod tube. It has Redington's unconditional lifetime guarantee. And it does everything that I need it to do. And you want this rod to be kind of a medium action. That's what's going to give you the best roll cast. It's going to protect the light tippets that we often use with the smaller flies and big fish. And it just makes for a comfortable day of fishing. It has a fairly sensitive, soft tip so you can feel the split shot tick in the bottom and such. Now, in all fairness, I will say that Echo makes a great rod. I think it's their Ion XL. The Ion XL 10-foot 7 weight, I think, is still under $200. And there is no question, in all fairness, for those that do like to buy nice and more expensive rods, the number one selling rod, and I will agree with this, there is none better, the Scott Flex. The Scott Flex has been the standard in, let's call it, high performance, high stick nymphing rods for steelhead for years and years and years. If you go back to, in fact, I'll mention this several times, but if you go back to a video called Steelheading Made Simple that Jerry Darkus and I did many years ago, you'll see it right here. All of this stuff is more or less the same as what Jerry and I showed you in that video back in the 90s. But the Scott Flex is a third or fourth generation of the original rod that Scott built for us for fishing the Lake Erie and Great Lakes tributaries. So the 10-foot, they offer it a 10-foot 6, 7, and 8, and no question, that is the best and I think they sell for right around $4.95, somewhere like that. But again, I stick with this Redington Path or something inexpensive because I just don't need a fancy high stick nymphing rod. So I know that's going to be somewhat controversial and not very popular, but I'm not a rich guy, and the $129 rod suits me just fine. Same thing on the reel. The reel that I've been using on this rod is an Echo Ion. You've all heard me say this before. Most modern day fly reels are better than we need them to be. I've caught a lot of steelhead on this reel, and it does everything I need it to do, and it sells for $79.95. I really like this reel. You may have heard me talk about the Echo Ion before. It's a little bit on the heavy side, but that's fine on this 10-foot rod. It actually helps me, I believe. So, you can use really whatever reel that you want. You do want a good disc drag system, one that's not going to lock up in cold weather, and you do want a nice large arbor. That keeps the line from coiling up, especially in the colder weather, and also gives you a higher crank ratio, higher retrieve ratio for when the fish may come running at you, which happened to me on this particular day we were fishing, in fact, several times. So large arbor, good disc drag system, and of course I put my reel on the wrong side. I'm going to reel on the left. So, you can use really whatever reel that you want, but again, I don't think that you need to have the most fancy reel for catching steelhead here in Ohio. It's a pretty down and dirty game. I also I mentioned in the video, I also like to strip and swing streamers for steelhead. That's really what I'd prefer to do, but it's a really low percentage game. We can get them early in the season to chase streamers, and whereas high stick nymphing or dead drifting, if you might catch 10 steelhead in a day, if you stick with fishing the streamers, you might catch 2 or 3 a day, or maybe even none. But of course, for my streamer setup, I am, now this is where I don't mind spending a little bit of money. I'm kind of a streamer guy. I fish streamers for trout, for steelhead, for largemouth, for smallmouth. I fish streamers a lot. And of course, my new favorite streamer rod is the Echo Streamer X, designed by our good friend Kelly Gallup. And I pretty much stick with a sinking tip fly line almost exclusively. And the one I'm using right now is the Airflow Streamer Max Short. That's my current favorite streamer line. And but there's also the Scientific Anglers Titan sink tip. There's the Rio Big Nasty. They're all good, but this Airflow Streamer Max Short is my favorite. I use it for trout. I use it for stripping streamers for steelhead, for swinging streamers for steelhead, and then of course I use it for largemouth and smallmouth. And then I've just got an old Ross Animus on here, although I did order up some of the new Echo Bravo LT. And I got a couple spools to get my whole streamer set up together. But this new Streamer X that Kelly has designed for Echo is by far the best streamer rod I've ever put my hands on. And check it out, of course, at madriveroutfitters.com if you like fishing streamers. The line that I've been using most recently is made by Airflow. Again, it's a Kelly Gallup line. It's the Kelly Gallup Nymph and Indicator line that Kelly did for Airflow. I like it because it's a light peach color. I can see it on the water. But the #1 selling line for this style of fishing is made by Rio, and it's called the Trout and Steelhead Indicator line, specifically designed for high stick nymphing. And then, of course, a real up-and-comer and is catching up to this one is the Scientific Anglers Anadro. And this, of course, has their amplitude coating. It also has a bright orange tip, which I really like, and you can really see it on the water. So I would not hesitate to use either one of these lines. Just so happens that in this case I have and was fishing with the Airflow Kelly Gallup line. just a few other notes about some things, and then I want to talk to you a little bit, of course, about the leader. You know, all know how I am about leaders, and we're going to get out the whiteboard and show you some leader formulas. But just some of the other things I carry on this particular day, and oftentimes, you know, I don't have to carry a whole lot of stuff. When I trout fish, I carry too much stuff. But in this case, I usually have 1 or 2 fly boxes, maybe 3. I'll have a streamer box, I'll have a nymph box, and I'll have an egg box. And I can easily fit everything I need to fit, even a few spare reels. I've got my gloves in here. I've got a wool buff. I can fit my leader wallet, which has everything I need to build any steelhead leader, streamer, or high stick nymphing. My fly boxes, my tippet materials, you know, my extra pair of sunglasses, because I always have 2 with me. It'll all fit in this waterproof sling pack from Simms. And on this particular day, we were in the boat, so I slung it over my seat and worked out of it. And then, of course, if you get out of the boat and you're walking or you're on foot, you can easily sling this over your shoulder. It's around your back. And it does everything I need it to do. And of course, you're going to be fishing in some harsh conditions, some rain, some snow, some cold, and might as well make it a waterproof bag if you can. Just a couple of tools that I need: a pair of hemostats. Of course, those always go with me no matter where I go. I do have a pair of nippers, and I've got those attached to the bag. And then on my wader belt is a pair of pliers. And in this particular case, I usually have my Manly pliers, and this is a pair of Manly pliers, but this is one called the Gripper Nipper. And I have found that the finer jaws on the Gripper Nipper does a better job when I need to crimp down the barbs on my smaller size 10, 12, 14 flies. Also does a better job of reaching in and grabbing those smaller flies out of a fish's mouth. And it does have a cutter on it, so I can do everything I need to do. Normally, if you see me fishing salt or big game stuff, I've always got my yellow-handled Manly pliers. Well, this is just the Manly Gripper Nipper, which I've found a little more suited for smaller flies and for some freshwater fishing. The indicators that I'm using, of course, I'm pretty much using the Airlocks. Another brand, when we can get them, is the Floatmaster indicators, but he's been out of commission for a while due to this whole pandemic thing, but we're hoping that we can get some of those back in stock. But I pretty much stick with the Airlocks. They're a no-brainer. This is the 1-inch size, and this is what tends to work best for us here. I like the orange. You can buy them in the 3-packs. I see the orange best, and so therefore I buy these individually in the orange, which you can find those on our website. Not everywhere are you going to find these that you can buy them by color. So, you know, there's white, there's pink, there's orange. Pick your favorite color. I just happen to see orange the best, and that 1-inch airlock indicator tends to work the best for me. Of course, split shot. Pick your favorite split shot. It really doesn't matter. I know it's not always popular, but I use lead. A lot of our guides use lead. It just gets you down faster, gets you down better. If you tie your leader right, you're not really going to lose much of this stuff, so I'm not too worried about the environmental impacts. But if it does concern you, tin is available right there on our website. Not going to hurt either way, but there's no question lead gets you down faster and more efficiently. I'll mention my tippet, and we'll come back to it. But when I'm steelhead fishing here in Ohio, I'm usually running 0x, 1x, or 2x. I do use fluorocarbon. I don't use fluorocarbon very often, but I do use it for steelhead. I've seen it make a difference. You can get a lot of abrasion. It is more abrasion resistant than mono. And the brand that I've been using for the past couple seasons is from Cortland. It's their ultra premium fluorocarbon. If you check this stuff out, it's expensive, as all fluorocarbon is, but it's by far the best on the market. This stuff is just absolutely amazing. The Cortland Ultra Premium. And I'm typically running 0x, 1x, or 2x. Of course, 0x for all of my streamers and big flies. I'll run 1X and 2X on my eggs and nymphs, and that may depend on the water clarity and also the size of fish that I'm getting into. I do carry a bottle of fly floating because a lot of times I will grease up the butt section of my leader and the tip of the fly line to make sure that it stays afloat. That's a pretty critical part of getting a dead drift and a pretty critical part of mending. I may even dress the last 6 foot or so of the tip of the fly line, and that's just going to help me mend a lot better. If you go back to that video where we talk about the mending, having that fly line floating high can make a big difference. So even though I'm not fishing dry flies, I do carry a bottle of fly floating with me. Of course, polarized sunglasses, you know, you're always going to have 2 if you can afford them. 2 pairs. I've got the green mirror for the bright conditions, and then I've got yellow lenses, which is called sunrise silver mirror. I'm going to carry those for overcast and dreary conditions, which often happens here in the Great Lakes region, especially here in Lake Erie. So, and I think one final note on my equipment is if you are on foot and fishing by yourself, you want a steelhead capable net. And you want something, first of all, big enough. You want something strong enough. And this is a really, really cool net. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is right here, the original net that I used in Steelheading Made Simple. And if you go back and watch that video again, Jerry Darkus and I landed a steelhead that was nearly 21 pounds here in Ohio. In fact, I think it's one of the largest ever recorded in Ohio. And this has a scale built into the handle. This is made by a company out of New Zealand, some of the finest fishing nets on the market. They have since upgraded their net bags, okay? But this one is literally circa 1995, 96. I still have it. The scale still works perfectly. And if you go back to that video when I netted that fish in this exact net, it actually bottomed the scale out real quick. So the scale goes to, I think, 14 pounds. So anyhow, there's some of the highlights on the things that I'm going to carry with me. Again, it all pretty much fits in here. My extra glasses, these will be on my wader belt. I'll have my fly boxes, my tippet spools right there. Everything that I need for a day of fishing. I can keep my extra streamer reel in here. It's all right there in my sling bag. So I travel pretty light when I go steelhead fishing. Let's talk real quick about some flies. Of course, again, you can go back to Steelheading Made Simple, and the flies that Jerry and I taught you to use in that video are still true to this day. You can also watch a video called Cool Flies for Hot Fish. And Jerry and I showed you how to tie some of our favorite steelhead patterns. They all still work. The steelhead have not changed their appetite or their preferences for what they eat. It's all the same. But on this particular day, last week, when we were making the video with Josh, we fished a lot of egg patterns. Eggs certainly catch fish, you know, here in the state of Ohio, throughout the Great Lakes region, really all over the world for that matter, if you go up to Alaska. And especially when the water is colder and the fish are a little bit more dormant. And then, of course, once the fish start spawning, and the males are laying behind, staged up behind the nests, and eggs are coming off the nest. Eggs are an absolute critical part of this. And my favorite, the one I use most often, is called a scrambled egg. And the scrambled egg is made out of a micro glow bug yarn. My favorite color is Oregon cheese. I almost always kind of start there. But this is kind of, we call this the peachy cream. It's a peach and a pink color. Steelhead orange. Of course, chartreuse. This is another version of a sucker spawn or scrambled egg. It's tied with sparkle braid, and I think they call these crystal meth. You'll also see the original sucker spawn that's tied with Angora yarn. So all kinds of variations on egg patterns and sucker spawn. You can find them, of course, on our website. We fish a lot of size 12 in these, sometimes go down to a size 14 if the water's clear. And let me grab my fly box because I had a few flies. Just a few kind of new flies that we've been fishing most recently. And this is a fly I've been using a lot. You all know how much I love soft tackled flies. Again, if you go back to Cool Flies for Hot Fish, I tie several soft tackles in there in that video. But I fish soft tackles religiously for trout, for steelhead, for panfish. And this is a fly called a gumdropper. And this is one we've been playing around with for several seasons now. And it finally made it into the rotation here in the shop. And I've caught quite a few steelhead on it. We've been getting rave reviews from folks. But the gumdropper is kind of something new. It's a really, really steelhead capable soft tackled fly. And it comes in about 4 or 5 different colors as well. Another new fly, of course, one of the all-time favorites is a Prince nymph. And then along comes a fly formerly known as Prince. That was probably sometime in the 90s when Prince denounced his name. But anyways, we've got a new version of the fly formerly known as Prince, and I think it's called a princess nymph, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I'm sure there'll be a link down below me there, and if I'm wrong, our friendly editor there will put a notification up on the screen as to the real name, but I'm pretty sure this is called a princess nymph. It's a fly formerly known as Prince with a little bit of pink, and then of course a pink hot bead. And anytime you put a pink hot bead on a fly, I mean, what could possibly go wrone? I mean, this is gonna just catch fish just like butter. And it's been one of the hottest selling flies in the shop. Of course, black stone flies, when we were on the water the other day, there were little black stones all over the place. This little black stonefly nymphs are actually one of the few aquatic insects that are found in our shale bottom streams here in the Erie region. So I would never go steelhead fishing in Ohio without little black stonefly nymphs. And then, of course, one of my all-time favorites, the Bloody Mary. I don't think the Bloody Mary made it into Steelheading Made Simple, but it's been a staple for us around here for a number of years, and I never go steelhead fishing, especially here in Ohio, without the Bloody Mary. Another fly that was a favorite for years, it kind of went away, but now it's back. This is a fly called a Schultz's Steech, and this is a fly that was developed by our good friend and shop owner Mike Schultz up in Michigan. And I think if I remember how the story goes, when he was guiding a bunch up in Michigan on the Pier Marquette, he was looking for a fly that would just flat out catch fish and be super, super easy to tie. And here it is. Again, I don't leave home without this fly. It's got that little hot spot on the front, maybe looks like a little egg. And it comes in olive, it comes in black, and it comes in purple. And again, Schultz's Steech. You can find it on our website. And that fly can be dead drifted, it can be swung, it can be stripped as a streamer. That's a really, really versatile fly. I a lot of times like to run it in tandem with a soft tackle bead head behind it. Really easy. And then just wanted to take a minute, some of my favorite streamers. This is called I think it's called the Precious Metal. I forget the exact color, but I'm sure we'll put the name up on there. But this has just been a great, great fly, especially in dirty water. Kelly Gallup's Mini, I think it's called the Laser Legal. This fly should probably be outlawed. It's so good. And not only do we catch steelhead on this fly, we catch smallmouth, we catch trout, we catch largemouth. But Kelly Gallup's Laser Legal, it's got a bead head on it, and it really, really does a great job of imitating the emerald shiners that our steelhead are feeding on in the lake. This is a fantastic steelhead streamer. Again, can be swung, can be stripped, and it's called Skittish Smolt. The Skittish Smolt, and this is the emerald shiner, or the, I think it's called the emerald shiner version, but again, if I'm wrong, someone will correct me. And last but not least, this is, I can't remember the name of this fly, but it's called a glass bugger. and it's somebody's name, and I apologize, but this is a really, really cool, sexy looking white and red woolly bugger. You can't go wrong with the color white here in steelhead fishing in Ohio. I think it's called Campbell's Glass Bugger. Campbell's Glass Bugger. Got it. I knew it would come to me eventually if I kept talking about it. But that is absolutely a fantastic steelhead streamer here. And then let's not overlook just a good old-fashioned white woolly bugger. White woolly buggers flat out catch fish no matter where you go. And again, white, 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 whether it's the laser legal, Campbell's Glass Bugger, a white zonker that some people refer to as the White Death. Of course, it catches fish, but I don't think any better than the Campbell's Glass Bugger or a good old white woolly bugger. So, whew, man, I'm sorry to talk so much, but this is fun. I like doing it, and it gets me pumped to go steelhead fishing again. We've got about another month and a half of good steelhead activity here in the state of Ohio and throughout the Great Lakes region. So, all right, we saved the best for last. Everybody knows I'm a leader guy, and let me draw up real quick on the whiteboard to take a second to switch over, and I will draw you up my leader formula, tell you how I put it together, and you should be all set to catch steelhead. Okay, so basically there's 2 or maybe 2.5 simple leader formulas that I use for my 10-foot high stick nymphing rod and for my 9-foot 7-weight streamer rod, fishing for steelhead here in Ohio or throughout the Great Lakes region for that matter. And the first one is the high stick nymphing leader. You guys have seen this before, but it's my basic nymph formula. And this is nothing that I invented. This was shown to me many, many years ago by the late, great Dr. Steelhead Michael Bennett, and I've been using it ever since, whether I'm steelhead fishing or trout fishing anywhere in the world. And it starts with 3 foot of 20-pound amnesia. Amnesia is just an absolutely perfect material for the butt sections on nymph leaders. It's got what it takes to kit up with the tip of the 7-weight and turn over split shot and an indicator, but it does it in a kind of beautifully floppy way that allows for a wonderful dead drift. It's still limp enough that I can lift it and pick it up off the water pretty easily. Now, to that, I've taken to attaching a steelhead tippet ring. And I don't think that there's anything special about the steelhead tippet ring. That's just the name that Rio gives them. It's the steelhead version, and they are the 3 millimeters. Okay, 45-pound breaking strength, so that's going to be plenty. And the reason why I attach that steelhead tippet ring is it makes that butt section permanent. As you know, I don't use loops, and I nail knot that amnesia to the tip of the fly line the night that I bring it home, and pretty much that butt section's never going to go anywhere. Okay, so having that steelhead, that tippet ring on there allows me to have the capability of rebuilding the mid sections and then of course adding tippet as I need without ever literally that butt section may be on the tip of my fly line for 2-3 seasons, or maybe even the life of the line. And then I'm going to add 2 foot of 15 thousandths Maxima Ultra Green. Maxima Ultra Green is the perfect limpness, if that's a word, I think. It's more limp than Maxima Clear or obviously Chameleon, but it's just perfect for a nice floppy kind of nymph leader. And then I'm going to attach 2 foot of 13 thousandths Maxima Ultra Green, and to that I'm going to tie a standard 2 millimeter tippet ring. If you're buying the Rio brand, they're called trout tippet rings. Okay, I like it to be a little bit smaller as I get closer to the fly, and especially since we're attaching thinner diameter monofilaments to it, that trout tippet ring is fine. And then I'm going to add 1 to 2 foot, maybe longer if you want, depending on how deep the water is. It's not overly technical, of say 0x, 1x, or 2x tippet. Again, I am using fluorocarbon for steelhead and the Cortland premium fluorocarbon is what I've been using most recently. If you are going to fish a second fly, I tie to the bend of the hook. We've talked about that before, and I'll go about 16 to 18 inches down to the second fly. A very popular rig is I'll fish an egg pattern, and then about 16 inches below, I'll tie a nymph pattern. Kind of just a note, my rule is on fishing a 2-fly rig. If I don't see the fish, if I'm fishing a deep run, the water's dark green or even stained, and I don't see the fish, I have no problem fishing 2 flies, and I almost always fish an egg and a nymph, sometimes an egg and an egg like we were doing this past Sunday. If I do see the fish, and it's fairly shallow water, I will most definitely switch to 1 fly. And that 1 fly allows me to target that fish a little bit better, and it greatly reduces my chances that I'm going to snag or foul hook that fish, which does sometimes happen in this style of fishing. But if I see the fish, 1 fly. If I don't, I have no problems fishing 2 flies, and I would highly recommend it. So the next leader formula is going to be for my sinking tip. In my case, the Airflow Streamer Max Short, or whatever sink tip you have. And again, we're going to use Maxima Ultra Green. Maxima Ultra Green is what I use for all of my sink tips and my sinking fly lines. It just kits up perfectly as far as stiffness with the tip of the fly line, makes for a wonderful cast, and it also just behaves very well in the water when you're fishing a streamer rig with a sink tip. And again, let's remember this is my 7-weight Kelly Gallup streamer rod, 7-weight Airflow Streamer Max Short. I'll go 2 foot, of course nail knotted or snelled. You think you'll find my Snell video right there on how to attach your butt sections. And you're going to go 20 thousandths diameter. And then I'm going to go 1 foot of 15 thousandths diameter, and I'll go 1 foot of, say, 12 thousandths diameter for my tippet. And that's it. Simple. A 4-foot leader is typically what I use for fishing streamers off of sink tips. Now, if you're looking to swing a fly, you can do 2 things. I might make this tippet just 2 to 3 foot. That's really about it. I may go down to 11 thousandths, may go down to a slightly smaller tippet, depending, of course, on the size of the fly. But you can go to a 2 to 3 foot, make it a 5 to a 6 foot leader. Tends to be a little bit more appropriate for swinging a fly. And that's it. I strip streamers, I swing streamers, or traditional Greg Senyo type spay flies with my 7-weight also, and also with the sink tip. So everything can be done right here out of my Mad River Outfitters Flip Pallet Leader Wallet. This is one I've put together specifically for steelhead fishing. I've got my Amnesia. I've got all the diameters of the Maxima Ultra Green. I'll usually keep some extra spools of tippet in the side pocket, and then of course I'll keep my tippet rings and a Snell tool right here in case I do need to reattach a butt section to the tip of a fly line. So there you have it. One cool thing. I want to give you kind of a preview. This is something kind of cool we've been working on. I'm not ready to announce this publicly yet, but I want to show you this. This is something we've been working on here. I got to play around with them a little bit, and we're going to play around a little bit more. But our good friend Brad, who makes all of our furled leaders here at the shop, he and I have been playing with this idea, and we've combined mono and threads to come up with a butt section for your nymph leader. And this is a furled butt section. This would essentially replace the Amnesia for the butt section of that basic nymph formula. This does have a loop in the end. Of course, I would cut that off and nail knot it to my fly line, but it does have a loop if you like loop-to-loops, and then it has a tippet ring in the end. So we're playing around with these. We're playing around with the stiffness. We're also playing around with the diameter. We may wind up having one for a 4-weight, one for a 6-weight, one for a 7-weight, 2 or 3 different weights and diameters. And then of course, we're doing them in all kinds of different colors. So that's kind of cool. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, so stay tuned. As you know, we're going to have a lot more coming at you when it comes to leaders and building your own leaders. I promise you. Okay? So there you have it. Basic leaders for steelhead fishing off of your 10-foot 7-weight or your 9-foot 7-weight streamer rod. So there you have it, friends. As always, we appreciate you listening. I'm sorry to be so long-winded for really a pretty simple setup of gear, to be honest with you. But of course, we're a fly fishing shop, fly fishing guide service. We love talking fishing and we love talking gear. So I hope that helped you out. Of course, if you have any questions on setting up the perfect steelhead outfit, whether it's here in the Great Lakes region or anywhere in the world, you can pick up the phone, send us an email. We're always happy to help. So remember, subscribe, hit that like button, stay tuned, hop on over to our website, and we'll see you real soon. If you like this video, hit subscribe. It helps out a lot. And check out these videos. We think you might like them too.